why would somebody sell you their property
Yep.
for 60%, 70% of what, the market value of that property, right? But it's because of these same things. These people can't sell the property normally, right? Because the house, again, it's either in array or disarray, and or they don't have the time to sell it. They don't have the time to go through the inspections.
I think it's distress or convenience.
Yeah.
Like that's really
Absolutely.
what it comes down to.
Yeah. Hey, what is going on, everyone? Welcome to the REI Big Shots Show. I'm Max Jimenez, and I got my co-hosts over here, both of them, Rafael and Vic. Big Vic. What's up, Vic? How you guys doing, fellas?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good, brothers.
Good.
What's
Good.
happening?
Not much, man. Excited to be here, bringing the people another show. Today we got some really great stuff we're gonna talk about that I believe is going to help those that are listening. You guys want to talk a little bit about yourselves and what's going on this week?
Well, I mean, I think we did a lot of talking about ourselves on the last episode. First off, we rearranged the entire studio because Vic was late, and then he decided he didn't. The Feng Shui thing wasn't panning out.
Yeah, he tore down our studio. As you could tell,
much.
last time we were standing, today we're sitting.
So
he's
We're more comfortable though.
Yeah.
Like,
But no, I think a topic, right? One of the biggest questions, especially if you're not in the real estate space yet, one of the biggest questions is, how do I get into it? How do I get started? Shit, dude, I have people that reach out to me and they've been in it for 3-4 years, and like it's not uncommon to ask, if you were going to start all over again, how would you go about it, right?
Correct. Yep.
That's where the value of cutting the learning curve comes in. That's where the value of listening to podcasts, of hanging out with people who are already in the lane that you want to get into, comes in. And today, I think it's a good idea. It's a good topic to just kind of break down some of the best practices that we think somebody getting into the space of real estate, into the space of wholesaling, and whatever avenue you're tapping into, should be, as far as for example, how do we find the deals? How do we negotiate the deals? What's the fastest thing to get to? One of Max's favorite questions is like, what list should I buy?
Yeah, it's my favorite topic to talk about. What's the best list out there? Absolutely.
No, but they're all valid questions, right? So it's important to address them.
Yeah, they are.
So.
Yep.
yeah, no, I agree. Touching on that, I think one thing. I mean, I guess we could get into it. One thing that I've talked to a lot of guys that get into the business and they're not successful. A big part of it is being aware.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of what your strengths and your weaknesses are.
Correct.
I met one guy, he's like, dude, I've been doing this for a year and a half.
Yep.
I haven't closed a deal. But when I was talking to him,
That's crazy to me,
when you talked to him, he wasn't a salesperson. Like, he just wasn't. He didn't have that personality. So you have to be aware of your your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like, if you know you're not good at sales, you want to partner with someone that is.
Yeah.
Because there's the integrator and then there's the visionary, right?
Yep.
So you have to be very aware of your strengths and weaknesses. I think that's a critical part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
this one is kind of like an adaptation of something that I learned from Tom Kroll. Dude's a beast, man. I don't know how he does it. He has just a magical way of putting stuff together, right? A lot of times it feels like he's running in the middle of chaos, yet still, things around him are happening, right? And one thing that he said was, hustle is a season, right? Me having the strategist mind it's like it's a season. It's not a business strategy. So we have to come in with the mentality, right? You have to understand that if you're getting into real estate, first off, you're gonna get punched in the face. Like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. You got to get punched in the face. And it may be early on, it may be in your 6 months, 12 months, but at some point, it's going to happen, right? It's just like the thickness that's developed from the space of entrepreneurship. So I think it's important to understand that and one, take inventory of the type of life that you want to live, right? Because it's not the easiest thing getting into a highly competitive space where people are fighting, and clawing over deals and like the fittest, the survival of the fittest is really kind of like the norm, right? And we see that all the time, and we've been through cycles where a lot of people get into it, and then things get a little tough, and then boom, it thins out. We get excited about that kind of space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I love that. One thing, going back to Vic, what you were saying about you've known some people that have been doing this for a year, and so or been part of this for doing it for a year and haven't gotten their first deal. That's really like that's a little bit mind boggling, because we were talking about before we went on air. How I'm not saying it's much easier to get a deal today, but there's more resources than when we started. I know we're going to get a little bit into that. I don't want to jump ahead, but one of the things that I was taught when I went through my Sandler training, right? I spent 5 years through the Sandler training system for sales. One of the main things that they focus on before they get into tactics and strategies and scripts and one-liners, all that, they actually talk about how to get in the how to get in the habit of creating daily behaviors, which is the work.
Yeah.
So what happens is a lot of people want all the information and they go around, right? Because the idea of being in this business, and you know, let's be honest, there's a lot of fans of this business, right? But there's not a lot of, you know, we need more action takers. And I know there's a lot of them out there, but they don't have the right direction. So people want information, right? They want information. But what happens is they never get better, and they're never able to have results because they don't take action. And when you don't take action, what tends to happen is you don't know what to correct. You don't know how to improve. You have the information, but how do you know where you need to make the improvements if you're not out taking action? Yeah.
Well, I think just what you said, they never get better.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it. I mean, because sometimes you're banging your head against the wall, and unfortunately, it's true what they say, like never quit, never give up, which is true. Like you have to have that attitude. I'm not going to quit no matter what.
Yep.
But at the same time, you have to be aware of what your skill set is.
Yep.
Because if your skill set is weak as a salesperson, you're not going to close deals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have, I've talked to some people that have a great personality, they have the attitude to close, but they don't have any critical thinking. Yeah. Like basic stuff.
There's an it factor to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's an it factor to it. So, but I think you could develop your skills.
Yeah,
so
100%.
You have to develop your skills. That's a big part of it too. So, I think we'll be able to offer some advice that maybe you don't hear, because people are just trying to hype the business.
Yeah, of course, man.
And sometimes just people they do it for years and they don't get paid. They don't make money, and then they just quit.
Yeah, this is very true, man. People try to hack the business.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, like, you might be able to hit off a deal. I've seen people that get into it and then a week later they have a deal, right?
Yeah.
Like 30K or
it could happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I've seen it. I've seen it multiple times.
Well,
right?
I did my first deal in 10 days.
Yeah.
But it's not the norm, right? And then what happens is, like, the expectation for that kind of stuff without the legwork, I guess, is kind of there. So we start creating false expectations, or we see that kind of stuff out there. So anyways, like, what I'm trying to get to is, like, don't fall for that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to put in the work at some point in time, and because it's requiring you to level up to that next stage. Shout out to our boy Dean Rogers. Let's up,
go.
dude? It's another beast in the business.
Yeah, big Dean.
He's watching on Facebook. We're famous. Dean's checking us out, bro. He's like Captain America if you don't know him.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah. So let's get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of how to tap into real estate, right? I mean, I'd like to tackle specifically the way. To me, the lowest barrier of entry is going to be always in the wholesale. If I were to start all over again, rewriting my entrepreneur journey, I would have started absolutely with wholesale.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
I started in a way more difficult industry, which was transportation. But if I were to do it all over again, I would go there. And now, let's kick it off. And I guess what's the best way? Question number one, right? Like, what is wholesale? Wholesale is the when you negotiate a property or a contract and then you sell the paper. You're not actually selling the property. This is a 50,000 foot view,
Correct.
Explanation of what it is, right? But you're selling your vested interest in a paper, in a contract that you negotiated.
Yeah, in essence, you're flipping paper.
Right.
You're not really flipping a property. Right. You're flipping paper. You're flipping the contract.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really a basic concept.
Yep.
Right. So with that being said, what kind of people, or what does a wholesale transaction, look like, and what kind of people are the most adequate, clients for this type of strategy?
Well, I think you have to be good with people. I think it kind of starts there. Like, you have to be a good salesperson.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like super outgoing, but you have to be authentic. You have to be, you have to have critical thinking. You have to be solution oriented. I think it starts with that. Like, if you figure out how to offer a solution to the person that wants to sell the property, that's kind of what gets you to the next level.
So, it's funny you say that, because when I talk to like our Tuesday nights, I have the sales hours, and I talk about that. It's like you hit the nail on the head, which is you need to be a problem solver first.
Correct.
Right. And then the second phase is then you need to have your skills come in second. And it's really strange concept to grasp, right? Like, what do you mean? Like, wait, problems are first, skills second. Now they both work in conjunction with each other, but you have to solve a problem before you can buy the real estate, which is the third piece, right? Problem solver and then sales skills or closer second, and then third, you end up buying the piece of real estate or you put it under contract, right?
Yeah.
And so, because you're right, like you can't not, you know, if wholesaling is getting a piece of property under contract and then assigning your rights, flipping the paper, but the only way you're able to get a wholesale deal is to really understand, what problem am I solving here, right?
Yeah, because ultimately, I tell my guys all the time, like, listen, if someone sells at a discount, because there's an issue they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Like, no one's going to sell at a discount just because.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's going to be, there has to be a problem to solve. So out of everybody, and this is kind of the regular stats on this, right?
Yep.
But out of everybody that wants to sell a house, right, maybe 4% between, I mean, and I think the number is between 3 to 5%.
Yeah, I thought it was like 3%.
Yeah, 3 to 5% are going to sell to us because they're in some type of you know, under some type of pressure, some type of distress, right? And distress can look different, right? It doesn't necessarily have to look like a beat up property. There can be financial distress. There can be situational distress. People can be going through a divorce. People can be going through probate. People can, you know, be getting relocated, right? So there's a lot of different types of conversations that fall into that gap of distress. A lot of times it's emotional distress, and you don't necessarily see it in the condition of the property.
No.
I walked into properties with sellers where everything looks tip-top shape. This is crazy. This is interesting. Off the top of my head, I can think of one scenario, right? I walk in, and this place is immaculate, just absolutely immaculate. Like super clean. Everything was like detailed and everything. The seller's way of dealing, she was going through some personal hardship and emotional pain, like deep emotional pain. But her way of dealing with that situation was to get busy working on the house. So she would come in and then paint whatever nicks, whatever, you know, and I mean, it was interesting. You would, like, anybody would walk into this type of property and then just kind of write it off. It was like, no, this is good. It doesn't need a new roof. It doesn't need paint. Like everything, all the cabinets are good. Right, but it's important to understand that when we're solving a problem, and like Max said, you hit it right on the head, right? We're leading with value. When we're solving a problem, we're looking for the real problem. It's not always going to be evident, right? So that 3 to 5% of the people that are going to sell to us don't necessarily, you know, scream out what's wrong or what the real issue is. They have different things that are happening in us. As problem solvers, it's our responsibility. It's our job, really. It's what we get compensated for. Is to figure that kind of stuff out and then having a creative way of solving it.
Yeah, you got to find the distress. There is going to be times where there's that one seller. They're like, I just don't want to deal with it. I got a ton of money and whatever. I don't care. Just give me whatever. There's I forgot who it was. A friend we know. I think, I don't know if it was Devin. I forgot who it was. But he got a deal from a lady, and she's like, you know what? I've made a ton of money. She's already a millionaire. I made a ton of money. I know the house is worth probably $300,000. You know, just give me $50,000. I was like, and
that's it.
He couldn't believe it. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, dude. She was super cool. She had a lot of money. She just really liked me. I was young. She let me have it for, I don't know, like 50, 60 G's. He made $100,000 on the wholesale. So that's few and far between.
He had to take her out. He had to take her out on dates for the next 6 months.
I'm sure he did something. I mean, guys, there's, you know.
It's okay, Devin.
We get it,
We're
bro.
problem solvers.
Yeah, we're problem solvers.
We've actually, like, for example, we've sent flowers. Like one we got 3 properties that we sold, and everyone was calling her. We sent her flowers. I forgot what it was. She was talking about how she lost her husband and et cetera, et cetera. We sent her flowers. She gave us the 3 contracts. So, like, sometimes it's something that you wouldn't think would work that works. So
well, that's why. But going back to the point of solving problems, you know, you got to be empathetic, understanding of the situation, and the more people get comfortable with you, the more the trust, you know, builds, right? And I always talk about, you know, for me, I believe there's 3 levels of trust.
It's organic.
Yeah,
it becomes
it's got to be
byproduct
organic
of being real with people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, being genuine, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the main word when actually talking to them, building rapport, and understanding that not everybody's going to be your prospect. We talk about 3%. I mean, that's very small, you know, for this type of market. So if you think about that, if we're only dealing with 3% of the market share when it comes to, you know, wholesaling itself, like, you need to be really good at solving problems, right? And going back to what you were saying about the motivation, distress, I always think about sometimes there's distress disguised as gain, right? So there's pain and gain. But gain can also become distress. So you have to, you know, this is as you start to get better and start to, you know, do a little bit more deals, you're going to start to realize that, right? Because not everybody's in an emotional financial distress. A lot of times, like you said, they got a job relocation. It's an opportunity.
Correct.
But can that opportunity become
Circumstantial distress?
Circumstantial distress. And can that opportunity become emotional distress if they don't sell the property and they can't move to their whatever they need to do? Like,
But a lot of times too, people they don't value their property.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, they're giving it away.
Exactly.
They just don't value it. There's no value for it. We had a lot of sellers like, oh, it's a what is it? A property that needs to be pretty much demolished.
Got it.
And then gutted. No, or not even that. It's like, it's not livable. And we go out there. I'm like, this house is livable. Like, just people don't realize that it is livable. We just you gotta put $50,000 into it.
Yep.
But it is livable. You're not gonna demolish the house.
Yep.
So there's those opportunities, and you get those the more calls you make.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So this leads into the kind of like what does a wholesale deal look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
The if you've never looked at wholesaling, if you never heard a podcast on it or kind of like done a little bit of research, the first question is going to pop up is like, why would somebody sell you their property for 60%, 70% of what the market value of that property, right? But it's because of these same things. These people can't sell the property normally, right? Because the house, again, it's either in array or disarray, and or they don't have the time to sell it. They don't have the time to go through the inspections.
I think it's distress or convenience.
Yeah,
like that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
That's a fair point. It's a very fair point. Yeah. So there's there's always gonna be the like the self-talk, the self-conversation, right? Of why would somebody sell me that? And then if we lead like when we're having these conversations with sellers, right? If the mentality is like, there's no way this person is gonna sell it to me. That's gonna come across, which is very interesting because I used to do that shit all the time. Like that was me sitting down across sellers at the beginning. I was like, no, this is not gonna happen. But I was approaching that. I was approaching that scenario with my my situation. Right, I like, for example, in my head, like, there's no way I would sell, property for this much, right? But it's not. It's like that's my story in my head. It's not their story. Yeah. Right. So we have to.
Situation's different too.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. We have to come in with again the ability to solve that issue, right, and just more open-minded when it comes to negotiating properties, and just there. I mean, there's we have one of the best closers right now, like here. So if you guys have questions, drop them. If you're listening to us on Facebook, on YouTube, or IG, or wherever, just let us know. Drop it in the comments. That's what we're here for, right? Yeah. This is a back and forth conversation.
I want to add something to that, and man, this is so true. I see this in so many people. Like, it's that negative self-talk, which comes through the subconscious, right? And because we all grew up differently and stuff, and understanding money, relationships, and all whatever. So it takes a lot of self-development, like literally, man, like, because it takes a lot of self-development, and it takes a lot of messing up and making mistakes and realizing, like, you got to rewire yourself, because you're gonna start running into walls and people hanging up on you. Because listen, it's not easy, like dialing and calling and getting cussed at and getting hung up on. But what it is, at the end of the day, all you need is that one yes, right? That's going to turn, that's going to turn things around.
Proof of concept,
right?
There was, not to interrupt, but there was one time when I was like fed up. I'm like, oh man, this is a grind.
Yeah.
I just like, I don't know if I could do this.
Correct.
And then I had already done a couple deals, but I was like, man, this is getting tiresome. And then next thing you know, a seller answers. She's like, oh yeah, I want to sell.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll take 25,000. I'm like, 25,000? She's like, yeah. I'm like, whoa, it was worth like 150.
Yeah.
So if you make enough calls, deals will fall in your lap.
Yeah.
But you have to make the calls.
Yeah. But going back to that's definitely 100% true. You got to make the calls, because there's no way you get better without doing that. But going back to the approach, the sales aspect of it, and the approach to the calls is, I learned this right through my training, where they said you got to leave your child in the car. Right. So when you get on the phones, which means that you cannot get more emotionally involved than the seller. Right.
That's interesting. I never heard that.
Yeah. So you got to leave the child in the car. Can't get more emotional.
Just for disclaimer purposes, not literally. Okay.
Yeah. Not literally. And if you do, make sure you roll the window down and crack. No, I'm just kidding. Which means that you can't get more emotionally involved in the sale, and also you got to remove yourself as you would. It took me a long time to learn this, man, because I grew up very different, right? Knowing, I always share this, and people laugh at me, which is okay. It's part of my story. Like, I didn't know what a checking account till I was like 19 when I met my wife. So think about that, right? Always carried cash in my pocket, and I got paid cash, right? Work with my cousins and stuff, and so think about that. Now I'm like trying to get into business and negotiate, and it's like. So subconsciously, like you're dialing and you're trying to negotiate, 40 cents, 30 cents on the dollar. It's like, Max, what do you think you really deserve this? Like, what are you trying to buy? Like, what's going on? Like,
well, it's interesting for me. It was was actually pretty easy to get deals. I was getting like 4 to 5 deals a month by myself. And in hindsight, I'm like, man, why was it? It wasn't that big of a challenge. I got my first deal in 10 days. And it's because I was
That's insane.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, I was.
That's a record, I think.
Yeah, I was really good.
It's gotta be.
Actually, as a matter of fact, I think I mentioned it briefly. I went to Carlos and Sal's office.
I like how humble he is.
Well, no, I mean, but I'm
Actually,
getting,
now that I remember, I think it's that list I gave you, bro.
It was.
I remember that. Yeah, I never got a piece of that, bro.
The golden boy.
well, I'm making the point. So I remember I went to Carlos and Sal's office. I talked to them, and then a week later, I got the contract, and they offered me a job. Because they're like, what the heck already?
Yeah, right.
But in hindsight, is because for 20 years I was in the produce business, and my clients were Safeway, and Walmart, and Whole Foods, and like you're literally like you're kissing ass.
Yeah.
Like it's very service driven. Like if they say jump, you jump.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had the buyer for I won't say the name, that would literally cuss us out. Like really, because when these guys are buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of product. They have a chip on their shoulder sometimes.
Yeah, right.
But you have to deal with it, and you're very service driven. Like whatever they say, you do. You really watch your words. You try not to say anything negative. Like you're just always appeasing them, and I think that really carried over when I was talking to sellers. Everything I said, it was to appease them.
Yeah.
And I think that really made a big difference. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your confidence levels were high, and like that's one of the first things that we see, right? Me as a coach is one of the things that I have to work on the most with students. It's not the script, it's not the pitch, it's not the numbers. It's having the confidence of actually getting out there. And one thing happens that's pretty interesting. A lot of us will get like when we start taking action, and we get out of that theory mode. We get very creative with avoidance. Very creative with avoidance. We'll start figuring stuff out that quote unquote needs to be done before I start hitting the phones or before I go and door knock on that property.
I have a joke about that, by the way, right? So it's like, well, I don't want to call because they're on their way to work. I'll call them at lunch. Well, they're at lunch. I don't want to bother them because they're eating. I'll call them after work. Well, they're headed home. I don't want to bother them because they probably had a long day at work. I'll just call them tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it happens all
Creative
the time.
Avoidance.
Every single day, twice on Sunday, man. But it's so true, right? And at the end of the day, like it's confidence is going to play a big part. Yeah. So I mean, honestly, I think that's most of the game. It's just having that self-belief, and you don't have. I'm not talking about walking around with the confidence of a giant, right? Or overcompensating on ego or anything like that. It's just having the confidence that you're going to be able to figure it out. And when you talk to somebody, understand that you're there. Trust that you're there to provide a solution.
Right. You're there to help them. And you have to have confidence, because if you don't, they're gonna feel it, and they're like, we're not selling our house to this guy. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. Like they'll sense that lack of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I always say is like how dogs smell fear. People will sense on the other side that you're not confident in what you're saying, right? Yeah. That's why it's really important in your opening up, in your pitch, in your intro. That's like the most important part of the phone call, because the rest of the phone call is going to go determine on how you do that, right? If you're doing a lot of stuff over the phone, most people are nowadays, and it's you're right. Like it's your job to instill confidence in the seller when you call them.
Yeah. So when I'm talking to, and I tell all my guys, like when you're talking to the seller, everything you say, it's kind of like a game of chess. Like everything you say, I'm trying to plant a seed of thought in the seller's mind. Correct. So they think positively about me.
Absolutely.
Like that's the key. I'm being very strategic with my conversation. Everything I'm saying, I'm trying to make them think positively about me as a person. Yeah. Like you have to be strategic in your communication. Yeah. There's guys that are better closers, I think, but I'm always constantly trying to make them think positive about me. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, they're like, you know what? But this guy was really nice, or he seemed like he really cared, or I'm trying to do that the whole conversation.
There's two. What I want to say, I don't want to call them keys or whatever, but there's two things that will actually create confidence on a phone call, which is number one, what you just said. You got to be collaborative.
Correct.
Right? Very collaborative with the seller.
Correct.
So which means that understanding that when you are conversation with them, you should not be making it about you. And I've seen this problem a lot. Like, hey, I'm calling from, ABC real estate company. We buy 30 deals a month and we're the best in the West or whatever the case may be. And then the second part is assertiveness. So collaborative and assertive, not being aggressive or belligerent. So assertive means that when you know that the prospect is wrong in what they're saying and potentially they need help, you have to assert yourself to make them help them think critically, so that way they can move forward from that. Yeah,
exactly.
So,
Yeah, it becomes a pattern interrupt.
yeah, exactly.
And assertiveness does not mean being an ass, right?
No, it doesn't mean being belligerent or aggressive.
Yeah, you can be tactical. You can be tactical and
don't confuse it for aggressiveness.
And have some tact when talking to people. And it's not no, you're wrong. It's
no.
Well, I mean, what do you think about this, right? Or what are your thoughts? For example, that's a transition phrase. What are your thoughts on doing something like this instead? And presenting some of the options, right? So there's different ways that we can go about navigating those conversations. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to to picking up, the phone or knocking on that door, like taking that.
Before you get there, though, because
step.
I know where you're going is because we talk about confidence, but we only skim through it. What are one or two things that you guys we can give, right? And us three, not say you guys, but we can give them. How can someone build confidence in that realm?
First off, let me share something here that I'm gonna divulge the secret.
Yeah.
Nobody in real estate knows everything about real estate.
Really?
Nobody in real estate.
Oh, man.
Shit, we have a group of the top killers in Maricopa County, which is like Guru Central, right?
And it's like a questionnaire, right? Like
and like we're always asking
Google.
we're always asking stupid questions on it.
Yeah.
They're not stupid questions, they're questions, right?
Yeah,
but it's stuff like every single deal is gonna be different.
Yeah.
Right? That's in my opinion,
it always has.
It's the cool thing about real estate. Like it's just different, right? You don't, it's hard to get bored. You get challenged. But every single deal is different. So it's okay to start with what you have. It's okay to get out there with the knowledge that you have in your pocket, right? As you're going through it, a new question is going to pop up. You remember those books when when you were growing up that choose your own adventure, and then you had it's very much the same thing. It's very much the same thing. Right? Like as we're going through the deals, as we're taking that first step, that that opportunity to go left or go right is going to pop up, and then I mean you figure out who to reach out to. You create power teams. You start getting into rooms with people who are a year ahead of you, 2 years ahead of you, and then you start learning that way.
You can't expect to know everything, but I think one key for confidence was with me, like I knew about real estate, but I didn't know everything. So for me, it was really studying education. Like before I started, I think I studied for 3 months straight. Every single day, I watched podcasts, I got courses. I really, really studied a lot. And so finally, after month 3, I'm like, okay, I feel comfortable now. Like I have enough confidence to move forward and take action and make the calls. I think that's a part of it. And you don't want to do it for 6 months. No. But 2-3 months of like hard study is going to give you the confidence to move forward. And then what I did too, like you partner up with someone. Like for a long time, I worked with Keegan. Right. We did a lot of deals together for a long time, and that was a critical key. So you want to partner up with someone. We got guys that send us deals. We partner up with a lot of guys to help them sell their deals. They don't have the knowledge to close a deal. So that's another avenue, and actually that's the number one thing to do in my opinion. If you don't know enough about the business, work with someone else that knows the business.
I love that. Yeah, that's amazing you brought that up, because like when I think about how do you build confidence, because a lot of people they really depend on scripts. They depend on the information, right? Like what's the best scripts? What's the best? And I always get that in my DMs.
Scripts don't get you paid.
Yeah, exactly. Like what's the best one-liners? How can I get the price from the seller and all this? And there's a lot of programs that actually lead with tactics and strategies. But the problem is that when the tactics and strategies, when you run into situations and objections and they don't work anymore, you end up getting discouraged. So your confidence level drops to the floor. So the way that I can tell someone how to build confidence, what you said, is you got to be learning, and then also you got to understand you have to go out and apply that learning, right? So and one thing that a lot of people make that are not good at is asking for feedback, like you said, reaching out to people who are better than them. And I knew I was at fault at that. It took me a long time to learn that, and that's why we were talking off before we came on air. It's like today it's not easier. It's just more resources and simpler when you can reach out to guys like us, yourself, right? Like to learn how to actually or work with us on a deal.
100%.
Isn't it crazy how easy it is to find, for example, phone numbers and stuff and lists?
I know.
And I mean, take that to 2014, 15, 13. like, dude, I mean, that was insane.
Yeah.
And I mean, at that point, you were still in the other industry, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. So, but we didn't like the resources to do that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
dude.
But-
There was probably only like 2 Facebook groups, right? 3 Facebook groups. bro.
Exactly. But the thing is too, like you have to educate yourself. But courses only take you so far.
Yeah.
And books take you so
It's
far.
that theory. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that theoretical. You know, think of it as a comfort blanket, right? Okay, cool. Like I have the knowledge and everything. One thing that you're and I commend you, you know, for this. One thing that you're really good about is taking action quick.
Yeah.
I've seen you take action and stuff. It's kind of like, okay, cool. I feel like that's a good thing, and then boom, next thing you know, like you're rolling into it, you're implementing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I honestly like I feel it's one of the biggest and most important things that we have to do, right?
You have to be decisive.
especially in this space. It moves too
100%.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be
It's
decisive.
I always say, like, right now we're living dog years when it comes to real estate.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
But one thing I was saying about reading the books and the courses, etc., that still doesn't compare
No.
to like a mastermind
Yeah.
or getting a mentor.
Right.
Like that's
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
critical. I think we've all hired mentors, right? At
Yeah.
some,
Oh, yeah.
At some
Oh, yeah.
point,
Yeah, yeah,
we've
yeah.
all had a mentor.
Yeah.
Even if you have to pay for it, and sometimes you have to pay for the
Yeah.
mentor, right?
Yeah.
Most times, I mean, I paid for my mentors.
Yeah. No, I have too.
And eventually, you become their friends, which is kind of cool. As
Yeah.
long as you're producing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If they're good mentors. If not, I mean, they come and go.
Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right. To me, it was a stigma. Like, no, I'm not gonna pay somebody to tell me. Like, I can go look and you know, search up Google, or I don't know, Google my way through, you know, my
I used to have that
entrepreneurship.
attitude, yeah.
Like, absolutely, dude. I'm telling you, man. It's like I wish I would have let go of that thing like years before.
Yeah.
But no, it's cutting the learning curve. It's really streamlining the process, right? It's borrowing somebody else's experience to move forward. And I don't know. To me, it's a lot more valuable to get, you know, to be, you know, up and running and successful in any given area in 6 months than trying to figure out that shit for 3-5 years and then, you know, spend the same amount of money or maybe a lot more trying to figure it out. So
I want to ask you guys something, because I believe anyways, from what I see and being around masterminds and groups, like one thing that doesn't get like really talked about through a microphone and like podcasts is how much actual wholesaling is an actual marketing and sales business. Like we've heard it, and we've heard people really just kind of like just skim through it, but how much really there's like how many people can you think of that are actually preaching that and talking about that?
Yeah.
How well you have to get with your marketing and how good you have to get with your conversion, which is the sales side.
I'd say
I mean, what do you guys think? Like, I mean,
90%.
no, what I'm saying as far as like, there's not a lot of people who dive into that and really talking about it with the bullhorn like they do other
agreed.
stuff.
Yeah, they just
right?
talk about real estate
And deals.
the deals and the contracts. But
well, it's not the sexy part of it. I think,
Yeah.
And it doesn't, you know, that's why. Like it you know, as far
But
as
that's you know what I mean? That's
yeah. Well, that's why there's fix and flip guys, right?
Yeah.
And most of those guys buy their deals from wholesalers.
Yep.
And wholesalers are really not real estate guys.
No.
Like we're
marketers,
We're
man.
marketers.
Marketers,
And salespeople.
Yeah.
That's what it is. If you're not good at marketing, you're not going to make money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Period. And sales.
And
you
sales.
have to be good at sales.
Yeah, you have to be good at sales.
So let's let's segue into some nuts and bolts here. Anybody who's you know, for the people who are new out there listening to this, just kind of tapping into the podcast, we're gonna start real basic until we start getting hit with questions.
Yep.
And I mean, the cool thing about this is that we have range. We can bring, you know, the conversation to a chapter 1 and intro, you know, type of deal, or we can go to chapter 20 and then, you know, break down, you know, complex stuff, right? This is kind of like, again, choose your own experience as the audience.
Yeah.
Like,
can we create I guess to put in the description, because people are going to watch the replay of this, where they can submit the questions for the next show, you know, like a Google form or something. Maybe we should do that. Yeah,
That'd
cool.
be a good idea.
I'll create that.
Agreed.
so smart.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
so okay. So with that being said, if you were going to start all over again, in wholesale, finding sellers, what approach would you take? Vic, go.
Well, it's funny because you guys touched on it in the very beginning, and I've heard it many times. Everyone says like there's no secret list, right?
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I've always disagreed with that because the way we work, we target very motivated.
You must be coming out with a list on it.
Yeah.
So
No,
break it down.
We're very niche. We're hitting motivated data, and we hit it in multiple markets. Now,
What does that look like?
Yeah.
well, I'll get into it, but
What
I
are
was,
the-
I was gonna say if
What are the filters?
Well, I'll get into it, but what I was going to say, but it depends. And here's what I'm getting at. I was going to make a point until you guys started making fun of me.
No, well, there's no. For me personally, there's better lists than others, but ultimately, there's no like, you know what I mean, like a list that's going.
Let him
go ahead.
Finish.
Yeah, go ahead. Let him finish.
Well, here's why. And this is one thing that people don't talk about.
Sure.
When you got 30 cold callers and you got a big team hitting data, you go broad.
Yeah.
100%.
Correct.
Yeah. But if you're by yourself, are you going to hit a broad list?
No.
You can't.
No.
You're not going to get a deal.
No.
Like, so if you're a small guy or you got 1 or 2 callers and you're just starting, you got to hit a motivated list.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because people say, oh, there's no list. Like, people would say that. And this guy had 50 cold callers. I'm like, of course he's going to hit a broad list because you have so many callers. You're calling, $500,000 a month. You need it. You need a lot of data.
Yeah.
But if you're just starting, you want to hit motivated in foreclosures, absentee, probates, deceased owners, absentee out-of-state owners. Yeah. Like, it has to be niche. That's always been my thought. So when people say there's no such thing as the right list, and I always disagree with that because it depends on the size of your team.
Yeah.
I'll break down the filters for my go-to list. What are your favorite filters? And filters for the people out there who don't know yet. You can actually go to services like Batch Leads or PropStream or there's multiple platforms out there, right? Where you can actually pull lists and filter them out by the type of occupancy, for example, like absentee owners or tax default, people who are behind on their taxes. So you can create a custom list based off of a bunch of different filters. The data's available. This is some scary shit, but it's out there. It's available with phone numbers and addresses and everything. So
well, for me, I've years ago when I first started in real estate, 20 years ago, I was hitting foreclosures, but now you can't survive on that because there's too many people hitting those.
I disagree.
It's too. In my opinion,
if you're door knocking them, I think it's a good
door knocking, which is what Rafael does. That's different.
That's different.
Like 100%. Like if you're door knocking, that's great. But if you're texting or cold calling, like for me, I'm hitting foreclosures. I'm hitting inherited, probate, deceased, absentee out-of-state owned, tired landlords. Just divorce is really good. Bankruptcy is okay. Mm-hmm. Divorce is a great list. Yeah. So like those kind of lists is what you're hitting. Now, as you grow your team, you expand that, right? Yeah. But those are the properties that I target. I'll hit foreclosures with no equity because you could do a sub 2.
Subject to.
Exactly. But everything else, I want equity.
Do you niche out property types?
No. But when we were selling the hedge funds, we would. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you got a hedge fund buyer, which they're not really buying right now, but when they start buying again, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1960, 1970 plus, then we would target certain.
Are you doing so? Just to follow up on that question are you not niching out just like so you don't go like press certain multifamily units or commercial? You're not cleaning it up that way.
So I hit all single family. So mobiles, single family residence. We do
2 to 4 units.
We added to the data, but there's not a lot of those.
Got it.
Also, in my opinion, you can't really focus on those alone because a lot of people are hitting them. So they're just
and mixed in there. So like
I do mix them in.
So correct. I do like residential, but then all included is like mobile homes, apartment or condos, townhouses, correct. 2 to 4 units, and manufactured homes, right?
Yeah, but from my experience, let me know what you think. Condos has never been a big thing for us. We've struggled.
But you do.
I haven't really done. I think since we started, maybe 2-3 condos.
Oh really? I've done quite a bit
it's just,
condos.
Hard for us. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But maybe because we focus more on single family and et cetera. But that's kind of what we focus on, and it's worked for us.
Yeah. We've seen more of that stuff on the sub 2 on the creative financing.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, because of rentals.
That. Yeah, I can see that.
You know what's a really good list that I like personally is the code enforcement list here in Phoenix. Yeah, because 2 reasons is one, you can just go pick it up right downtown. You got a $12.50.
It's a big list though, isn't it?
It is. So you pick it up, you got to pay for it. $12.50. You can't have like you got to have the exact same change. But the second reason why I like it is because it gets emailed to you, but in a PDF, so you got to convert it into an Excel and then clean it up. It's a huge list, like over 3,000 records. However, though, what I like about it is that's actually go ahead.
For that, go to Adobe.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be doing it yourself.
Yeah. Well,
If you hire-
there's a
the list,
converter.
it was like 80,000 records. It was a huge list.
Really?
Yeah, but I think
I
it
don't
was,
remember that, bro.
Outdated?
I think it was outdated.
You didn't have the
It
hookup.
was compiled, correct.
Um,
And so then I stacked it.
Oh, okay,
So,
got it.
So stacking data is really
So if you
good.
like
Oh,
driving
yeah.
for
That's
dollars,
money.
then you should go get that list because that's what that is.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah,
is the,
you can create routes. I mean,
Well, this is the list that this is like the city doing the driving for dollars for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I love
totally.
that. My go-to anytime I tap into a new market or my go-to list is I do research on whatever avatar property is selling the most in that city, right? In whatever area I'm tapping into. So I'll look for the highest, and you can go to ListSource. ListSource.com is you can do a lot of research there. I mean, I use it mainly for research. I hardly ever buy stuff from there. But you can still go through, set up an account and then go through the filters, and it'll give you counts. So it'll give you numbers. Like there's, I don't know, that 800,000 houses, that are built between 1972 and 2007 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So you start to see counts, and then you can create filters. And when you do it, I have a certain process that I go through. I'm able to see the highest sales, right, on the type of property. So I'll look at the homes that sell the most in this area are built or built before 2000, right? From then I'll go 1972 or 78 to 2000 or something like that. So I'll start creating a filter based off of the highest sales.
Why I think that's super good for the dispo side because from my opinion, what I've noticed, like 3.2 1960 plus, those sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
If you got a 2.1
So
1930, you're gonna have a hard time selling that property.
So I think
if you could stack what you're saying.
So here's a next step to that, right? So I go after the property avatar, if it's a 3-bed, 2-bath, and the works, right? So what year, what type build, that sort of thing. So you're gonna have this kind of like bread and butter type of property for the area, and you create the property avatar.
I agree
and then
with
that you start adding pain points. The first pain point that we go after is absentee owners. So absentee owners. I mean, we can add probates. You can start stacking and adding a couple of things. But for example, an absentee owner list on the property avatar, it's one of the first go to. And it's the thing about that, like you were saying before, it's usually a broad list.
Yeah.
So you have the count, right? If you just go after, like, for example, monthly foreclosure sales, you're gonna have, I don't know, a couple hundred, if that. You're gonna go through it in an hour or two.
Super. Yeah.
So bigger lists like that are it gives you more time, more reps at bat, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's one of my go-tos.
I agree with that. If you could stack the property avatar, what's selling the best, because there is like investors like a certain type of property, right?
Yep.
So if you could stack that with motivation, you could do really well.
Yeah, and you can use that for direct mail too.
Yeah.
Those type of lists.
And the thing is, like, some guys, some gurus, they're like, no, there's no secret list. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, that's not true. Sorry.
It's because they don't know, bro.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
déjalos,
someone
pobrecitos.
told me the other day, those that can't do, teach.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
That happens?
Yeah, I don't want to name drop, but I've seen that a lot.
You should still put bandit signs out. They work really well.
I actually called the bandit sign the other day for.
Did they pick up? Probably
for
not.
dispo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you start messing with the guy. Hey, are you doing any deals, bro?
Yeah. Hey, are you renting the house?
Are you trying to charge me $10K to come to a property walkthrough?
Where's the link?
Where's the link?
No, so I mean, anyways, like there's definitely ways of narrowing down the data that you're gonna hit, right? So all this, all we're talking about right now is looking at the demographic that you're gonna be, for example, going after, right? And then you can do this in a couple of different ways. One of my oldest, or my backbone types of marketing has always been cold calling.
Oh yeah.
I think, though, with that being said, that everything has transitioned, right? Like the effectiveness of cold calling is not the same as it was 3 years ago.
No.
Yeah.
We went through a period there where SMS was fire, RVM, which is ringless voicemail, was fire. So you have like these like verticals that pop up every now and then of different ways of reaching out to people, right? But they dissipate. Cold calling has always been one of the effective ways. Now, if you're getting started in real estate, you don't have the ability to start paying for a ton of marketing and whatnot. You want to hit volume. You want to be niched out. calling the leads is actually going to be one of the best ways. And if you couple it with door knocking, which is actually going out there and then knocking on the door and having conversations with sellers, which is scary.
Yeah.
But it's going to be the most effective and fastest way to get to a deal. It is, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think anything can beat it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Door knocking is probably if foreclosure list, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What do you guys think about driving for dollars?
I mean, we do it as well at the same time. So, as for example, like the teams that are door knocking out there, as they're going to the properties, we give them all the data, like everything's laid out, right? But as they're going through to these properties, they're also catching opportunities. You know, when they see distressed homes, and with door knocking, like the ability to see circumstantial distress is not going to be there, right?
Right.
But you can definitely make a note of something or write down an address. If there's a car out there, it's been it's been there for months.
Spider webs on the bottom, never moved.
Cracked windows, old stuff.
So it's funny.
Overgrown lawns.
I was gonna say, and that's why I if somebody that's starting out new, I think that's a really good way to start as well. I remember I used to pick up anywhere between here in Phoenix, anyways, right? We have to be, we have to be aware that it's a very big market, right? And so I used to pick up anywhere between 80 to 110 properties a day.
Yeah.
And what's great about driving for dollars, I always say this, and you guys are gonna laugh, is like those properties are not in anybody's list.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're like, "What do you mean?" Like, wait a minute, you can buy that. You can buy the ad. You can, but that list is not gonna say the house is boarded up. The weeds are 6 foot high. The roof is got a hole on.
It's your own list.
It's your own list. Exactly. Yeah.
There's a PBC lead that I locked up and got under contract. Then another guy called me. He's trying to be sneaky about it. And then we ended up talking, and he was cool, so we kind of chatted. And I'm like, how did you run across this property? Because it was a PBC lead.
Right.
He was like, I drove it. I drive that area, and I drove the house, and I looked like there was distress, so I knocked on the door. And I was like, wow, interesting.
Nice.
So it does work.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So we used to do that. And that's what I was gonna say. When we were going to in-person appointments, like I was going to 3 or 5 in-person appointments. As soon as we were done, I drive the block or drive the neighborhood, and I pick up five properties, 10 properties. Yeah.
There's a company. What they do, they drive for dollars, I guess, with AI. So they look for like pools that are either empty or they're brown or green.
Yeah.
So they look for that, and then they look for like junk cars. So they summon. I think with a satellite, they're looking at the area. So I use them. It was pretty decent. The problem is, and then they give a score. The problem is it was kind of expensive. I'm for the cost, it wasn't really worth it.
What was the accuracy? So out of 10 properties, how accurate was
it? It was pretty good. It was actually
like 50%?
accurate, but the cost is high.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't
I've always,
continue.
because I love that, and that's they came up with virtual driving for dollars, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you have to be very careful with that because you don't know how.
You don't know. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Wait, you don't know what?
You don't know whether it's updated.
you know what I mean? Like, Google
the
Maps
quality.
and
Yeah,
the quality,
yeah.
I mean, you can look at the date on the bottom; it'll tell you 2023, but still, you don't.
But you guys kind of do that, right?
Yeah,
Do you?
yeah.
Okay.
So through VAs, like I've had VAs sit there and then look at a monitor and then drive for dollars in a virtual market.
Yeah.
So looking at the maps and then just kind of literally like walking on the screen.
Yeah.
And then just okay, cool. They see a beat up, through Google Maps, through the picture, see and that's what I know you can do it through Deal Machine and like a lot of these services out there. We were just using Google Maps. Yeah,
it's more accurate.
Well, I mean, in my head, common sense tells me it's going to be the most updated picture, right?
Right.
So going through that, and then they would write down the address and they would skip trace it. So look up the the phone number and then throw them into a list and hit it.
Yeah.
Right. So and those are all like functions that a VA can do. A virtual assistant is somebody who can help you a lot in your business. Yeah. And they handle the minutia, like the stuff that's busy work, and it's repetitive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're a huge asset for real estate wholesaling.
Yeah, I agree. But at the end of the day, and I think we covered that pretty well. At the end of the day, first and foremost, it comes on sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Then the list, and then everything kind of snowballs from there.
And also remember, if you're spending money on lists or you're spending time and effort pulling lists or putting lists together, like call it. Like that, the best list out of all of them is the one you consistently call and follow up with.
Pick
right?
up the damn
I know,
phone.
man. Like,
Exactly.
I'm not getting deals. Okay, and that's the question I always ask. Okay, how many hours a day? How many hours a week do you call? Like,
Yeah.
well, last week I didn't.
How many
call
calls
at
did
all.
you make
Yeah,
last
yeah,
week?
exactly.
I don't know. I'm not like I called and I haven't gotten a deal yet. How many calls did you make? 22.
Yeah, I got a lot of guys that hit me up for coaching, and I really don't do coaching, but sometimes I'll do a coaching call, etc. And every time I tell them, like, Ray Kroc, right, McDonald's, super successful guy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he wrote a book. I'm like, do you know the title of the book? And they're like, no. And the title is Grind It Out. Because it says it all. You have to grind it out. It's not like work hard. It's like, no, you got to grind it out.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. You got to pick up the phone. You got to make the dials. You got to talk to people. It's a grind. Like if someone tells you it's easy, it's not.
No, it's not, bro.
Here's the other side of that coin too, which in my it's a hidden benefit I think most people miss, but I think it's the biggest benefit, right? When we're grinding it out and actually picking up the phone, having those conversations, you're building your skin is getting thicker.
Yeah.
You're getting exposed to those talks, to the rebuttals, to the issues,
you're working that confidence muscle.
Yeah, to the negativity a lot of times that we get on the other side of the phone, and then you start realizing, oh shit, I have this perspective on this thing.
Yeah.
But the reality is this, right? So it builds you up. When somebody, it's scary to me when people want to start a wholesaling business and then they don't want to go through the grind and they just want to hire. I want to hire a VA. Like I got
pay you
50,000
$20,000 to skip the line.
I want $50,000, and it's like, okay, cool. It may work while you have me. But the second that goes away, your experience is not there.
Yeah.
The tenacity that you need is not there. The skin is not thick enough yet. You don't know what to look for when
then
you're
they blame
hiring.
you.
Yeah, you don't know what to look for when you're hiring. You don't know what to look for, to evaluate whether or not people are actually doing the right things or the jobs, right? I mean, we talk about KPIs all the time, and metrics and stuff like that. Unless you go through it and you understand it and just kind of become, I'm not saying even an expert, right? But become dangerous in it. Just understand that, like, okay, cool, this is the way my business works, right? It's not, you have to go through that grind season and kind of work the trench. Yeah. And it's not a forever thing, right? But you have to go through that process so you can become that person that can actually run the business.
Yeah, a lot of times success comes down to the person you become.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
I love it.
Like me, like, was I able to do what I'm doing now 10 years ago? No, because I wasn't that person yet.
Yeah. If you want to buy something or you wait, through something with go get a franchise.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to happen in real estate wholesale.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about that though, Rafael, because something that I always talk about is like the 3 phases, right? I call it the cycle, the vicious cycle of 3, which is lead gen, follow up, and then conversion. A lot of people, they do all 3, right? We do all 3 when we first started. I did it.
Yeah.
And so, but what happens is that people they stay in that because of what you just said. They never learn to really like write down what they want and their KPIs and understand how many calls does it take for one conversation? How many calls does it take to convert off that? And then they don't know how to move away from that because they don't know how to give it to somebody. Yeah. Right. And it's crazy to me. And that's a big issue that I see is like, you have to start thinking. And I had this conversation on Tuesday. It's like, you guys want to be great closers and you want to be great at converting, but you're still stuck generating your own leads because you're not really like putting a pulse on what you're doing and how you're doing it to be able to hand it off to somebody. And I always tell them, as soon as you're able to hand off the lead gen to someone, like to create opportunities for you, do it where you're financially capable, right? Get a cold caller, a VA, get somebody pay them a certain percentage, because if your goal is to be a great closer or and just focus on sales calls, you got to get away from that.
Well, that's what I did after I think I closed 3 deals. Deal number 4, I hired a cold caller.
There you go. Exactly.
Deal number 5, another cold caller.
Yep.
And then at that one point, I had almost 30 cold callers as I had closed so many deals. But also too, like, you have to leverage. Like, success in business is about leverage.
Yeah. Right.
So you got to leverage the money you have.
Correct.
And the resources, technology, and you have to leverage people.
Yeah, no.
Like, you have to use leverage.
And I love that. And that's I wanted to hit that, and I'm glad you went there, is what better of a time are we in where you can collaborate with someone? Exactly. Leverage, right? Yeah. Where you don't have to feel like you have to do everything, because you guys know when we started, like back when we started it, you literally were doing everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't need to right now.
Yeah, and now we're getting into commercial, and where I'm partnering up with a guy. He's going to do the dispo. We're going to do the acquisitions, and so he's leveraging me, but I'm leveraging him.
Yeah,
and it's a win-win. And so that's what it takes nowadays.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a big factor.
Yeah, and it's funny, and I, thinking about that conversation, like I never have to generate a lead ever. Like if I didn't want to, like people will call me and just to help them to close a deal.
Yeah.
Right. Like I developed that skill so well and learned how to do it so well. Like I've had people that call me and they got a list like of deals they have to save. They don't know how to have that conversation and other stuff. Right. It's crazy to think like how you start to navigate through these phases and where you get to, but you have to do that. And it starts by understanding what is it that you want. You got to write down like your sales goals. You got to write down your targets, because if not, everything moves. Everything is moving, and you never become that sniper that you desire to be.
Exactly. And as time goes on, we'll discuss other critical things in the business that you need to be successful.
Yeah. I think we can have a whole episode on maybe negotiation strategies, and then another one on follow up, another one on this one. Just kind of turn this into a little kind of like university for the weeks coming forward.
I love this. This was awesome today, man.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Let's go.
Oh yeah.
And Vic said there is a secret list, gurus.
There is a secret. But did you notice he didn't give us the filters?
He did it, man. He said, you got to pay, sucker. Cost you $10K.
Well, you got to order the coaching program.
Click on the link below.
That's a $10K conversation, bro.
That's a $10K conversation. No, I mean, actually, everybody wants to make money, right? Like that's the thing. And we were talking about, cutting the learning curve and just kind of, learning from everybody else's or your mentors mistakes, right? Because every people go through the grind, and we don't necessarily have to get punched directly in the face, right? Somebody else already has. So being open-minded to that kind of stuff, level up, collaborate. People, like if you're in a different market, I mean, start reaching out to real estate investor groups, meetups. I mean, meetups are huge, man. I made so much money off of meetups.
Oh, totally, 100%.
Yeah, I still hold I host a monthly meetup here at the office. And it's every single time it's something, people walk out, with new connections, with new deals and collaboration.
Well, even our mastermind, there's always stuff that we learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Always. Yeah. And what we'll do, like, because we're almost at an hour now. Next on the next one, I'll break down like all my KPIs. Well, not my KPIs, the property, I guess, details.
Yeah.
I'll break it down, and then maybe we get all kind of discuss that, and you break yours down, and then we'll talk about it, because I think it's important. It's good information for people to know, because you might be hitting the wrong list, and you're just spinning your wheels.
You might be, or you just don't know how to talk to people.
That too.
Which I'll help you with. It's funny, because a lot of people are like, Max, how do I get really good at talking on the phones and kind of negotiate like you? Like, well, it's simple. You just gotta make tens of thousands of sales calls to sellers, and you got to spend 5 years of training. That's it.
What? You mean putting the reps? It's interesting. It's very rewarding. I'll tell you that much, man.
It is. Yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. So, Vic, where can somebody get a hold of you if they want to pick your brain and kind of continue the conversation?
Best place is on IG, Vic.Heredia, Heredia.
Boom.
Let's go. Likewise, you can find me on all socials at Real Max Jimenez,
Awesome. People, fam, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Again, this is not really scripted. We're just kind of going off of the stuff that we feel it's important. Two-way street. It's a two-way conversation. So make sure that you drop your comments, you leave us a message. We'll try to come back and address this kind of stuff. And this is, we're here for you guys. We want to provide, we want to add value, right, to everything that we're doing. At the end of the day, we rise like we're in an elevator, right? And the more we collaborate, the more we work with each other and tap into each other's strengths, the faster we move. It's just how it works.
Yeah, that's really what we want. We want people to ask us questions, so we kind of it's a back and forth.
And we'll have a link for Google Forms, so that way you can submit the questions for the show for us to answer on the next one.
Yeah, awesome. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Send this out to somebody you think might benefit from it. Follow the podcast. Follow me at Rafael Cortez CEO as well. And, with that being said, we're going to call it. And until next Friday,
let's go.
We're going to do another REI Big Shots episode for you guys. So bring the heat, bring the questions, put us on the spot. We like that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Till then, stay focused. You got this. Boom.